What's cracking, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. New video. Today I ran across this 1998 special report on Corcoran State Prison violence. It says Hezekiah News. Hezekiah News. I don't know which one. But out here in California, I think a lot of people even outside of California have heard about Corcoran. Especially if you're my age or around my age. Corcoran, excuse me. So I entered the CDC. I got busted. I got arrested for my crime, my life crime, in 1993. I entered the California Department of Corrections in 1994. So I entered right around the time it was horrible in Corcoran SHU, but it was also getting towards the end. The everything was going to come out in the next 18 months to 24 months. And I can tell you that when I entered the CDC, it was known that Corcoran was gladiator school. People were being pitted against rivals, and staff were betting on who was going to win. I remember homies telling me, yeah, if you knew how to fight really good, they would move you to other buildings to fight, like Northerners that could fight really good or Crips that could fight really good. And those were like the main fights they wanted to bet on. But we're going to get into this. We're going to let, this is, even though it says Hezekiah News, whatever it is, it's a 60-minute report, and hopefully 60 minutes report. Hopefully I'm going to be able to actually put this video out. Let's check it out.
2 years ago, we first reported the story of California's prison system, the nation's largest. And one prison there in particular, Corcoran State Prison, where the FBI was investigating numerous corrections officers, prison guards, who'd been accused of staging inmate fights, sometimes wagering on the outcome, and then when those fights got out of control, of shooting the inmates involved. Since Corcoran opened 10 years ago, more than 30 inmates had been shot, 8 of them shot dead during those fights.
It's important to note that they're saying, I think he said over 30 or over 30 inmates were shot, 8 of them killed. Those that survived, some of them were left with a colostomy bag. Some of them had, like I remember a homie, and he was in Pelican Bay SHU with us. No, excuse me. He was in B facility in Pelican Bay with us. And his, I want to say it was his right leg, but it doesn't matter which leg it was. The calf muscle was gone. His leg from the knee down looked like a broomstick. And it was because the muscle had been blown off by an officer. So even though these guys were surviving, not all of them had the same functions or the same build as they did prior to being shot.
The California Senate has been looking into that violence since our first report, and they have come to a sad conclusion. But we begin tonight with our original story. Most of the fighting and the shooting of prisoners has occurred in Corcoran's Special Security Housing Unit, the SHU, a prison within the prison that is set aside for difficult inmates, violent inmates.
So those are the 2 yard doors. Those 2 blue doors you see inside where the convict is standing. There's a yard to the left and a yard directly in front of him, and you see he's looking to the left. He's already looking to see who is out there.
From throughout the California prison system, Lieutenant Steve Rigg was a supervisor at Corcoran.
We've had inmates killed when it could have been avoided, and now I think it's just a cover-up.
Since Corcoran Prison opened in 1988, guards there have killed 8 inmates and wounded scores of others, more than any other prison in the country. Why were so many inmates getting shot at Corcoran? First, the California Department of Correction is the only major prison system in the country where the guards are armed inside all the prison housing.
And that's one thing that we've always known. Compared to other states, they have the guards have the guns in order to keep you from jumping the fence. In California, they have the guns to just do whatever they want, and they get the shootings are justified. It's wild. But that right there, just so to clarify, this clip right here is actually the pod in the gun tower, control tower in Pelican Bay. That's Pelican Bay SHU that you're looking at. That is not Corcoran. That's actually two pods. So this, I don't know if you can see my cursor. This, where you see the stairs, that's a pod right there. There's the cells. There's 4 on the bottom, 4 on the top. And then this over here is another pod. Cells on the top, 4 cells on the bottom, 4 on the top. That's how tall. That's how small Pelican Bay SHU pods were. And that's what the control booth officer got to see. From where he's standing, he can look into every pod, but he can't see in not a single cell.
Areas. And for years, its regulations called for
that yard right there is a Corcoran SHU yard.
An integrated exercise yard policy. But if you put feuding inmates, blacks and whites, Latinos, rival gang members, into small exercise yards like this one in the SHU, it's bound to lead to violence.
And if you put them on the yard together, they're going to fight, either through hatred or through peer pressure. They're going to fight.
According to both prison guards and inmates, staged battles, gladiator fights, complete with betting, became a regular entertainment at Corcoran. Matches were set up by selecting inmates from rival gangs, from a SHU cell block like this one, and then releasing them one by one into the SHU yard. At least one Corcoran supervisor reportedly amused himself by calling the fights like a ring announcer.
And that's where most of the shootings took place also.
Officer Richard Caruso worked at Corcoran with Lieutenant Steve Rigg.
My superiors sometimes called down to the control booth and asked, "Are you going to have a yard fight?" And the staff told them, "Yes, we are." And the staff were told, "Hold the yard up. I have a new secretary that just got on board here at Corcoran. I want to bring her down and show her the Corcoran way." And when they brought her into the control booth to show off the fighting, the gunner was told to let him fight a little bit for she can basically get impressed.
In 1995...
Why would a normal woman be impressed by that? Especially if the fight gets out of hand and they wind up killing somebody. The cops.
Officer Caruso and Lieutenant Rigg, after being rebuffed by their prison warden and by superiors in Sacramento, decided to go to the FBI to try to put a stop to what they...
Okay, that's a 180 design prison. That looks like B section. I can't see the writing. These are the showers right here. One upstairs, one downstairs. Single man showers. That's what you get in the 180. Let's see if they show the wall, and you'll see this is a perfect for everybody that still can't wrap their heads around what a 180 is and a 270. A 270, you'd be able to see all sections. This one, you're only seeing one section.
Considered the guard's bar.
There you go. There's the wall. In a 270, this wall would not be here, and these cells would be able to look over here and see C section, look the other way and see A section. But you see, there's a wall here dividing the section. There's a door here on the top and a door here on the bottom. That's for the cops to walk through.
Barbaric acts. One such incident involved inmate Preston Tate. He was in prison for rape and in the SHU for allegedly attacking a guard. In April of 1994, Tate was shot dead in the SHU exercise yard by a guard who used a 9mm rifle. Anthony James was with Preston Tate that deadly day in the SHU yard. And James says that once the guards sent in these 2 Hispanic inmates, those men entering on the right, he knew they were going to have to fight.
You saw them coming across to you, and it was apparent that there was a fight that was about to begin. Couldn't they have stopped it?
Yes. The guard would have hollered, "Get down." We would have got down because really nobody wanted to get shot.
During the fight, wooden blocks from a riot gun were fired. Anthony James was hit, and he moved off to the left. And then within seconds, the fatal shot followed from a rifle loaded with an exploding bullet.
And you heard him say that Tate was in the SHU for assaulting a guard. You're not going to get away with that. At some point, they're going to retaliate. I remember a homie in when we were in Pelican Bay on B Yard, a cop wouldn't let him go to store. And he was like, hey, like, what's going on? I've been standing here for an hour already. You know, Yard's almost ready to go in, you know, this and that. And the cop snatched his ID out of his hand like crazy. And, you know, the homie was like, what the fuck you do that for? And the CO said, you're lucky this ain't the old days, because in the old days, and the homie knocked him out. And he wound up going to the SHU. And he was on the same bus with me when we went down to New Folsom from Pelican Bay. And they issued us our state clothing, right? And our state shoes. And we all got black and white, the states, right? The PIAs, which are like, they look like imitation Converse, except one person, the homie that had knocked out the cop, he got a pair of bright yellow ones. And we told him, as soon as we hit the yard, homie, exchange them shoes. That's so they know who you are. Like the gunner will know, like, hey, the one with the yellow shoes, that's him. And we told him, you get into anything, they're probably going to shoot the shit out of you. But everybody knows that. You assault staff in there, man, they're going to beat you down the day you did it, ship you to another institution, and then beat you down there, and then probably whenever they can, put you in situations like this to retaliate.
It happened so fast. At this point, Tate, he done been shot in the head.
James says that Preston Tate told him that a guard had vowed that he would never leave the SHU alive because he, Tate, had assaulted another staff member.
Was there ever any verbal warning to the two of you or the four of you down there fighting?
Nah.
Do you believe this was a setup?
A lot of times what the SEALs would do is they would start shooting after they shot. Sometimes after they shot several times, then they would give the verbal commands. Just to be able to say they gave verbal commands.
It had to be.
After the shooting, the videotape shows the guards coming in and hauling out Tate's dead body.
Was Preston Tate murdered?
In my opinion, after reviewing everything that I've reviewed, being told everything I've been told, I think he was murdered, yes.
But in this press release, the day of the Tate shooting, the prison said that Preston Tate was killed because, quote, Tate refused to obey the numerous orders of the yard officer to stop his aggression on another inmate. Afterward, a review board of prison officials issued this report justifying the killing of Tate as a so-called good shot. Quote, the shooting was within department policy.
There was no weapon. It was not a life-threatening situation. There was no serious bodily injury. And to have the shooting review board review all this evidence and clear this shooting is sickening.
Eddie Myers was deputy director of the California Department of Corrections, the man in day-to-day command of California's prisons.
How could it have been a good shoot? Tate was not the aggressor. Tate didn't have a weapon.
And this right here, this deputy director knows it's not a good shoot. You can see he's tensed up. They do that because they know the lawsuit that's coming. They know the family's going to sue. But regardless of the outcome of the report, the lawsuits still come. You know, the CDC, this was another one of the many ugly blemishes on the CDC's history. And these were, regardless of what you think of them, these are people's sons and fathers and stuff, you know. And this goes back to what the Prison Guard channel, what he's talking about, you know. These people weren't held liable. They're dirtier, you know. The prison organizations do play chess with real men, but the CDC plays chess with everybody, human beings. their employees, the guards, the convicts, the inmates, the free staff. It's a trip.
And it was a good shoot.
Tate was not the intended target of the shot. The officer intended to save Tate's life. It's unfortunate that Tate...
That's very close range. And these tower cops have to certify. I don't know how often it is. There's some COs that watch all of these channels. They can say when, but I know in order to be in the tower, you have to certify. You have to go to the shooting range, and you have to fire your weapon, and you have to qualify and certify, whatever you want to call it, in order to be in the gun tower. That guy hit who we wanted to hit. Period.
Tate was hit.
And the shot just went wrong.
He missed.
Who was he supposed to be shooting?
One of the two people that were on top of Tate.
He was supposed to be shooting one of the two Hispanics?
Yes, sir.
How many bad shoots have there been by the review board?
I don't have the exact number. I could get that.
And he did. And it turned out there had been 0 bad shoots. In effect, the Prison Shooting Review Board justified every one of the shootings at Corcoran. But that is by no means what an independent commission set up by the California Senate said late last year. They found that 24 of the 31 serious or fatal shootings at Corcoran were simply unwarranted. But since our first report was broadcast back in 1997, we've learned of yet another kind of brutality that California prison guards committed against inmates: rape. Not by the guards, but by other inmates used by the guards to retaliate against prisoners who had gotten out of line.
I want to say, because he said inmates. As far as I was aware of, there was only one. Rape is very rare in California. It's frowned upon. But one name that everybody knew about was the Booty Bandit. And keep in mind that California doesn't integrate cells. And the COs were using this guy to go after those inmates that they didn't like of that ethnicity.
Did you also say this, quote...
The details of the so-called state-sanctioned rape became clearer during a special hearing on prison violence last summer by the California State Senate.
Whether it's correct or not...
A hearing attended by Senator Quentin Cobb.
The Department of Corrections was willing to allow at Corcoran State Prison those conditions to exist in which a prison inmate was encouraged knowingly to commit rape against another inmate and get away with it.
Case in point, Wayne Robertson, a convicted murderer and known sexual predator. He's nicknamed the Booty Bandit. Investigators say he raped at least 15 inmates, many of whom were thrown in his cell for punishment. Meet number 16, Eddie Dillard. He's out of prison now and has started a family, but back in 1993, Dillard was serving time for assault with a deadly weapon when he got into a fight with a female officer.
Again, you see the pattern? This guy, and I'm going to keep it real. The blacks in the CDC, they assault officers at a higher level than anyone. And it's because of the structure of the different factions. Raza factions can't just touch a cop because they feel like it. Anyways, I'm not going to get into all that, but the blacks, everybody knows, they will get off on the cops in a heartbeat. And unfortunately for them, the cops had this dude that's known as the Booty Bandit to punish. They had him to utilize to punish in retaliation for staff assaults, other convicts.
For punishment, the guards at Corcoran State Prison locked Dillard up in a cell with Robertson.
He gets mad and tries to strike me. We start fighting in the cell.
Start fighting in the cell?
Yeah.
You at 120 pounds and he at 200.
It's really not no fight. It's really him tossing me around the cell.
And
he like wrestles me down. He's trying to like pull out my underwear. And I'm like, nah, and I'm And I'm hollering for the COs, kicking on the door. Nobody never come and just leave me in there.
Over a period of 3 days, Robertson raped Dillard twice and tried once to force him into oral sex.
How can you expect for a person to be subjected to that type of cruelty and then expect them to come out back into society and be productive after being scarred like that?
In fact,
and I'm gonna go ahead and end it there, because then it's gonna get into the correctional officers, and one guy who saw the light, a correctional officer that saw the light after he was fired for excessive violence, excessive force. But I just wanted to do something, give you guys a glimpse. I'm sure a lot of people have probably seen this episode. I don't know how many have seen it where it was, had a former convict who's done decades actually go through the video with you. I was in Corcoran SHU. However, I went through Corcoran SHU on my way back to Pelican Bay. They laid me over there for, I believe it was 2 months. 1998. By that time, they had segregated the yards. We still had group yard, but it was segregated, and it was Southern Mexicans, whites, and Fresno Bulldogs would go to yard together, and then the blacks and Northerners and others would go to yard together. Did that mean there was never any incidents? Well, of course, you're still going to have incidents, but it wasn't a war zone anymore. Later, in the 2000s, early 2000s, the CDC changed their policy, to where now it's dog kennels. Dog runs is what we call them, but it's like dog kennels. And you only go to yard if you have a cellie. You're only going to be on the yard with your cellie in a dog cage. And there's 10 cages. Some places there's more, but there's 10 cages on each side. And you go out there, and it's. I mean, you see the sun, I guess, right? But things have changed at Corcoran. Things have changed within the CDC, but it's still not a place where anyone should ever want to be. That's my video for today. Hopefully, you guys enjoyed it. Everybody, please be safe, be smart, and tell the ones you love that you love them. I'm out.